Hey everyone, I did say if you blink you might miss the finish. With the leading Ultime just less than a day to the finish, and whilst Edmund de-rothschild looks comfortable in control of the race, we only need to remind ourselves just of what happened in 2018 to realise that this race is far from over yet. In 2018, Francois Gabard dominated the race, and of course, as he rounded Guadeloupe, he fell into the wind shadow, and the wily Francis Yoann managed to catch and pass Francois in the final race to the finish line and set a record in the process. Now, Charles Caudrelier on Edmund de Rothschild will not want history to repeat itself, but Gabard will know that if he's close, there'll be an opportunity in the wind shadow to perhaps sneak a result. Now, in the IMOCA fleet, I've been just reading the harrowing update from Fabrice Amedeo, who's recovering on board a container ship following the explosion and onboard fire to his IMOCA Nexans art Fenetres. It sank, sadly, off the Portuguese coast, and it's a pretty emotional read from Fabrice, who some of you will know as a journalist, and I'll include a link in the comments below. Meanwhile, Charlie Dallin and the leaders are picking their way across the Azores high. Progress is pretty slow, but they should break through into the trade winds later tomorrow. And in the Class 40, Corentin Douguet, the skipper of Quéguiner, announced that he won't be making a pit stop in the Azores to fix his charging issues. Instead, he wants to fight it out with the leading duo of Paprec and SNEF. Now, Yoann Richomme is currently leading just ahead of Xavier Macaire. Was my sort of pick for the podium for this race, and if he goes on to win this edition, he'll make the double, having won in 2018. Let's have a quick look at the race tracker. Okay, so we're here with the Ultimes, and as you can see, Ponteprat in Guadeloupe is not far away. It's just 460 miles away, and at the current speeds of over 30 knots, that's 3/4 of a day away. So sometime tomorrow morning, these leading duo are going to be crossing the finishing line with Thomas Coville not that far behind. And looking at the trade winds into the finish, they're pretty steady, they're pretty strong. There's maybe one jibe to do or a couple of jibes for Edmund de Rothschild. Which may leave an opportunity for Francois Gabard. But who knows, as they go around the back of the island, they're in the wind shadow. There'll be opportunities to make some gains. So it's not over until they cross the line. Okay, let's have a quick look at the IMOCA. And you can see, Charlie Dallin still extended his lead from yesterday. He's nearly 100 miles ahead. And going well. I mean, going well. They've still got this light pressure, this light wind, Azores sort of ridge to cross through, but it's gradually filling. And as the Azores moves over, the breeze becomes a little bit more steady. So it's becoming increasingly unlikely the fleet behind are going to pass him unless someone perhaps dives to the south and makes a different move. But it is going to be light and soggy for the next 12 hours or so. So let's just see if the fleet can bunch in a little bit closer to Charlie. He'll certainly be watching his back. And so on to the Class 40s, and there they are, just passing through the Azores at the moment. Yoann Richomme there, back in the lead from Xavier Macaire in second place. Again, so many of those Class 40s really tightly bunched. Such an awesome fleet to watch this particular class because they're so close. But no real surprises to see those front two boats out in front. And then, of course, Corentin just in third place, who decided now not to stop in the Azores and determined to fight it out, but of course with some charging issues. Okay, let's have a quick look at the weather forecast. And you can see the Azores high here in this position. It's still to the southwest of the Azores, and it is sort of moving in this sort of direction, and it will in the next few days be sort of centered in its normal position over the Azores high. And if we just sort of fast track through to Wednesday, you can see it sort of elongated out towards Madeira and still sort of tricky, providing this sort of difficult passage for the boats, but you can see again if we look in here. Let's just clear that a sec. There is a little sort of patch here, and this is the sort of route that the IMOCAs and the Class 40s are looking to exploit. If we then fast forward to Thursday and then into Friday, and you can see by Friday the Azores High is positioned right over the Azores High, and that means for those IMOCAs and Class 40s and the boats behind, they're going to get into some decent trade winds, and they'll have this wonderful kind of trade wind sailing all the way down to Guadeloupe. Fast forward into Saturday, and again, you know, really quite good breeze, but there's a few oscillations. You know, breeze is sort of meandering along here a little bit like a river, so you know it's actually, you know, southeast and then a little bit of northeast, and so they're going to have to sort of time these jibes to make the way to Guadeloupe. And then you can see there on Sunday, this is sort of the time when the leading IMOCAs should be finishing, and look how strong the trade winds are here. I mean, this is wind speeds of, you know, up to 30 knots in the gusts, and pretty decent strong wind. And then if we go into Monday, again, you know, fantastic trade winds, and as the Class 40s will be nearing the finishing line, it looks like the breeze is going to hold the whole way along. Okay, let's have a quick look at the routing, and this is for the foiling IMOCA, and you can see up there on the screen you've got the Azores High there, and look how close the leading IMOCAs are to that high as it drifts across to the east, and this sort of strengthening northeasterly filling in behind it. And really after, you know, sort of the next 12 hours, the boat should get away from that high pressure and into some really decent solid trade winds. And then it's really fast sailing all the way down to Guadeloupe. We're still on for a race record. There's a good chance that the leading boats are going to be in sometime on Sunday afternoon, and say the route looks pretty good from here. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the Class 40, and you can see there they are at the Azores, still going upwind, still quite fresh as well, 15 to 20 knots. But then they just start to get slowed and impacted by the Azores High as it sort of, you know, drifts across east towards their course. Eventually it moves to the north and to the east, and the breeze fills in behind. You know, trade winds are starting to build initially from that sort of southeast direction, and then as they start getting further down the track, there's sort of good 20 to 30 knot easterly, really solid trade winds for the latter part of this. Still looks pretty fast for them for this next week, and we're probably a week away from their finish, but still a potential for a race record. So another incredible 24 hours on the route to Rhum. Make sure you do read Fabrice Amedeo's account on board his IMOCA 60 Nexans. It's pretty harrowing, but well worth a read. Tomorrow morning, well, the race will be won. Will it be Caudrelier? Will it be Gabard? We're going to be live at the finish. We'll see you tomorrow.